okay, the live started. So that's day 7, and today we'll be doing the hammered copper metal texture. That's what I have here, and that's again on a cake board. It's just a trial for practice. Um, so I've done it on the cake board. So when you do that, for now, if you're practicing, you can do it on the cake board like I've done here, or you could do it on a panel of fondant. With just a panel of fondant may not be like really looking great for a picture or something. So a cake board, but later you can use a cake board just in case you're trying to ration things and then not use up whatever you have at the moment. That will be a 6-inch board, and I'm not doing it on a bigger board like I said on the previous slide. So that is the other cake board that we'll be using right now. So you can see it's all shiny and copperish and all that. So obviously we need copper luster dust that I have with me. If in case you don't have, but right now I was just checking what if people don't have, what can be the other alternative. So you can use gold airbrush or luster dust with brown gel colors mixed into it, and so you need to liquidize it. So you need Evaprex or Otka, or you can have both a gold luster dust and brown petal dust mixed together, and then add Otka or Evaprex to it, and then but that is not going to give you the proper copper shade. It's going to give you some antique gold kind of a finish, but that is the closest. So that's the one that I have. I've added a brown airbrush color to gold airbrush color. I'll be testing this out to show what is the difference between this one and that one. So obviously if you are looking at copper, then you need copper luster dust to have the copper shade. But then this hammer technique is a very, very basic technique. Basically I should have just I could have told it via a message or a written text or something, but how do you do? We don't even need a live. But then when you actually get to doing it, when you see someone do it, it's a little more interesting. So you can also kind of do it along with me. So for which you need fondant. So there are some tips that will be useful. Will be when you do it on a cake, what do you do? So if it is a ganached cake, ganache cake has to be set properly. You can't ganache and then immediately drape it with fondant. So when you drape it with fondant, this whole thing, for this one I have an airbrushed. So I thought, okay, airbrush is also a way of coloring the entire thing. So you can use copper airbrush color for that, or you can mix the copper luster dust with Otka and use it in your airbrush. But make sure your airbrush, the opening is a little bigger, so the color comes out of the airbrush gun. Okay, and so this one is dry dusted. So I'll tell you, when I show you, you'll be kind of fascinated to see how dry dust sticks so really well on the fondant. So when you do it on your cake, your ganache will set for some time, which is like overnight is what I suggest. But if you are working in AC, then maybe from 5 to 6 hours in like really cold AC will be a good way of resting the ganache. After which you drape the ganached cake with fondant, and all these whatever you're going to do will be immediately after you draped. You will not let your fondant dry before doing this technique, because if it is dried up, you will not be able to do those dimples. If you don't have luster dust except silver, what we can do, then we can't call it hammered copper texture, but you can call it hammered metal. That's what we can do. That doesn't matter. So it could be like hammered silver. Silver is also a metal, or hammered gold texture. So it's just that a practice, and then what color you use right now, and then once you get the hang of it, you will know what exactly you have to do when you get to be working on the copper itself. Later when things are available, you know what color to buy. Okay, for right now I'm just rolling it a little thicker, because I'm going to do it on the board. And now when I poke, I'll go and when I'm going to use ball tool. So when I do, I'll just go and hit the hard board, right? If you're doing it on the cake, you can drape it with the same thickness of the fondant that you use. Why? Because the cake will be soft, and I'm sure you won't poke it so the ganache starts seeing out. That's not something you want. Also, when you're doing this on a dummy, suppose you are working on uh, a showpiece, and then you're working on a dummy. Then when you're going to do this hammered copper texture, then you need to keep the fondant thick. But on the cake, you can just use the same thickness that you use for draping. So right now there are some air bubbles, so I'm just going to poke with my pin and remove the air bubbles out. Okay, so now I get my board, and when the board is there, if you are covering the board, then you need the board to have edible glue. You can also use shortening on the board. Rub the board with shortening and then cover it up with fondant. If you are going to cover your board for other reasons like the actual board covering, then if you cover it with you rub it with shortening and then cover it with fondant, later you'll be able to peel off the fondant quite easily from the board. Now if it is edible glue, it gets a little difficult, but right now I don't have stock of shortening with me, and that's the reason I am sticking to edible glue. You can use fondant smoother on top. So the next thing is to cut off excess. And save that fondant for later. Turn it back. Then make sure the edges are fine. Okay, and then we need, so what I will also, before going on to this, I thought I will show you some samples of how the different ways of making that dimple looks like. Because sometimes with the size of the ball tool and what kind of ball tool you have and all that, kind of depends on how it is going to look. So I'll just do on the board once I show a few variations of what you can do. Okay, I'm just keeping it a little thicker. So I just pick out the ball tools that I've tested the texture. So I think I have 3 of them. Okay, so first I'd used this one. Okay, so this is the ball tool that we commonly have, right, in the set of modeling tools. but I quite didn't like it. Why? Because it has this line, this joint here, and that is just going to give me this cut. I don't know if you can see, there is a cut line in between. So that line keeps showing up whenever I'm just going to make that. Yeah, I'm working. Are you working on the cold temperature is a question. Yeah, I work in AC room all the time. Okay, so this side I can try, but the line is still there. But if this is the only ball tool that you have as the last option, then what you can do is hold it at an angle like that and then go and do the dimple, so you can avoid making that line. So if you are going to work like this, then at the end there will be lines drawn, like a cut line there in every dimple. So if you have this and you're sure that this has that the joint here, make sure you're using your ball tool at an angle like that. So depending on how big you want the dimples, you can just go place them next to it. So the dimples are going to be placed next. Also, I just try here, the dimples can be randomly placed. This is also fine. So when you randomly place, what happens, if you want to go back, the sizes of these dimples just get lost. Okay, so even if I am making a bigger one, and when I am placing the the neighboring ones, this one, the size gets lost and they get a little smudged. So when I go back and do the space here, they kind of get messed up and you don't have the exact look that you want. But you can still go ahead and just press it properly once and try not to go back to it. That is one way, because I tried doing the random one. You see, for this one, you see this is the same dimple that we got using this ball tool, right? But it has gotten really smaller. So this random way of placing the dimples, I was not quite happy with how it looked. Okay, so and this is a ball tool I had used for this one. So I'll just see if you have a metal ball tool like that. Let me just see. You can also use them straight in. Okay, so when you use it straight in, and I'm just making them in between, this one is in between the previous row's dimple. And when you are doing, just understand whatever pressure you're putting, and you retain the same amount of pressure. I'm just twisting it because I just want it really big and I want that shape to be kind of retained as I go. Okay, so and now using the same ball tool, so this is the amount of pressure I'm giving. So the size varies, right? So using the same ball tool, do not play around with different pressure that you are making your dimple with. Just work on a similar pattern of the pressure that you are putting. Okay, so that's the metal thing, and it is heavier and it is just made the dimples and it is just staying in place. Let me just try using this one to kind of twist here. The twisting is not possible. If you see, the inside is just kind of gotten that little something is not right inside, right? It is because of the line that is there. So even if I am the line which I meant by the joint in the ball tool, so if I'm just going to try and give a twist, it's not working. So that way it's not good. So if you have a metal ball tool, that is when you can go around and do the twisting, and when you do the twisting, it comes out like really good and it stays there for some time. and the weight of the metal is also heavy and good. So if you are working on a smaller sized cake and you don't want like really big dimples, then obviously you need to go and use a smaller ball tool, and this is a metal one and it is quite fine. So here again you can twist. So make sure you're doing the exact same pattern of whatever you're trying to do throughout the sheet. When you can't have, you know, different textures all around and then call it this can't be like, you know, on one particular cake. So now these are the other ways of doing it. The other one, if you look at I'm just reading the question. Brand of fondant is sugar in what I am using now. Videos paused. Right now I think it's not paused. I'm just actually working, and then sometimes the table is just there lying. I'm just talking. Sometimes looks like it's just static, but I'm talking and doing something. What did I say? Okay. So there's also other way. If you just Google for hammered copper metal, there are, you know, certain textures which are just random like that. But there are properly, you know, placed hammered texture like this. But I like this better for the cake because it will look neat. And if it is like quite random like that, sometimes we can just call it, that's how I wanted it. That's how, you know, I want the texture to be kind of rustic and no, it's not going to look neat, and that's the purpose. We can also call it like that, doesn't matter. But you need to be sure where you are using it, what are the other techniques that are going to be there on the other tiers, or if this is a single tier all by itself, then, you know, the uniformity, if it is important for the composition of the rest of the cake, you use this. And if you're okay with this random dimples, you can also go ahead with this. Because if you actually finding in Google for the hammered copper texture, you also have these random ones. This is also okay. So you can Google and see before you attempt, or you can just practice both. So this is also possible. This area is also allowed, but I like this one the best. Okay, so I'm just going to, and this one drying until I'm just talking to you is also not allowed. I'll just start from the middle. I'm going to eyeball the spacing between every dimple. I'm holding it upright. So now I will put the next one in between the dimples of the previous row and give as much space. By doing that, if I am changing the shape of the dimple of the previous row, it may not look good at the end, but a little change is fine. Now again in between the dimples of the previous row, I am twisting because this ball tool doesn't have the joint line. Now I am using dry dust because I tried and it worked. Also because airbrush is something that, you know, I kind of have it as my last resort to use to color. Mainly because whenever I don't want my brush strokes to be seen, that's when I pick up my airbrush. But here I just wanted to try out if my brush strokes are seen. It didn't, so I just stuck with the dry dusting itself. But I will be showing you what happens on the airbrush. I will not be able to show you because unfortunately both my airbrush machines conked off, which I figured out this morning. but I can just use the the color that I've mixed up. I can use a brush and brush it on a sample to show you how it looks. So as I said, I have mixed gold and brown. Usually I mix up gold with brown. Then my gold is like kind of more towards the yellow tint, and I am looking at an antique gold. Then I mix brown with gold, so that is going to be closer to an antique gold and not copper. But in that case, we don't have to really call it copper. It can still be a luster metal color. You don't have to just call it copper, that's it. Hammered gold is also possible. You can just use gold and then it can be hammered gold. Hammered metal, but just generalize it and then call it hammered metal texture. I'm just going around quickly on all the dimples one more time, just in case if they have bounced back and lost the depth in the dimples. Okay, so this also you're not supposed to let it dry if you're going to dry dust it. So here on this practice sheet, so that's the airbrush color mix that I said. I just kept mixing up gold color and brown. I'm just trying to pick up a brush. So let me just do half of it with this and half with the dried. And if you have airbrush, so that's how it is. There is quite a lot of brown on gold airbrush. Brown is from Americolor and gold is Magic Colors gold airbrush. So okay, so I'm just kind of go dab inside. I'm dabbing because I don't want to show the brush strokes. So if you really don't have airbrush and you don't have luster copper, you can mix up your gold with brown. And when you're using brush, if you're using brush and painting, you can let the whole thing dry. You're not supposed to let it dry only if you are using luster dust like dry. Okay, so now because it is soft and I am dabbing my brush, I could lose the detailing, or this brush will start giving me like newer texture there, which we may not need because the texture that is created there is like, you purposefully made those dimples and texture. Okay, so by just say I just kind of make the strokes here. So also depending on what kind of brush you're using, the strokes could be seen. It's soft and you're not supposed to do it with brush, with wet, anything wet painting on top of fondant. You're not allowed to do, not supposed to do when it is wet. So when I'm doing here, see, kind of brush strokes are seen. If you're okay with it and if it is not like really very prominent, you can still go ahead and do. And when you dab, the brush strokes will not be seen. Okay, okay, so on this or I'll just move on to this because it will anyway be a repeat. We'll just compare it later on how this one looked with a dry dusting. So before dusting, to just safeguard my working counter, I'll be having my aluminium foil. What I have is bright copper edible luster dust from Sugarin, and that's a very soft brush that I have. Okay, so I'm just going to dip the brush inside, take a handful of the copper luster dust. This is dry dusting, and you will do it when the fondant is fresh, and you won't let it dry for some time. We'll be doing another coat as well. So the first layer will look a little dull because that's the same thing I've done to the other one there. So if I am going to brush it off, the copper color will go off. Okay, so let me just try. So by doing this, the color will go. Also because the fondant is a little drier now. So when you know that the fondant is kind of really fresh, okay, you will use the dry dust method. When you know it is kind of, the fondant is dried out, then you will have to make the liquidized form of the color. So if it is the cake, you will be anyway doing it on the sides. Not too much color will be staying there in the dimples. But even if it stays, the best thing to do is to use your hair dryer and then blow it off. So whatever excess is there inside will just go off. But right now I'm just going to put it upside down and then give it a gentle tap. So let me see what is the difference between the one that I made like 15 minutes before the live is when I made it, but then the fondant was rolled and I didn't have time to wait. So this is the one that was made before the live, and this is the one that is made right now. I see there's excess. I'm just kind of going to take and blow off the excess from inside, and now I can blow it myself. But when you do it on a cake, you don't blow on the cake, but you use a hairdryer. But before it gets like really hot, you just do it quickly and then blow things out. Okay, so I don't see a lot of difference. So that this excess, I will have to put it back because you cannot waste so much luster. So that's the old one and that's the new one, which is like in 15 minutes gap. But here I see there are some white spots. Why? Because as I was talking to you, I put it aside and I was working on this kind of got dried out. So dry dusting with luster dust, you have to be sure that the fondant is not dry at all. You need to immediately act after, as soon as you've draped, you make the dimples, and as soon as you make the dimples, you need to start dusting out with dry luster dust. Or the other option is to mix the luster dust with Otka. But right now, unfortunately, I don't have Otka or so I'm just taking a little bit of it. I'm going to brush on top of this and see. Because of these white spots, but it's better to avoid the white spots. Okay, so I have got some Otka with me right now. So a little Otka into this bowl of the copper luster that I had just used. I'm going to pick up another brush. A soft one and a long one. So you can use Evaporex if you don't want to use Otka. So let me just check the consistency if it is fine. Let me test it on this by any time you have colors. I'm trying to dab so you know these strokes can be avoided. So now if you feel your fondant is kind of dried out, then you mix it up with your Otka or Evaporex, and then you go on and paint it. You can dab it. Okay, so this looks better because of the dried fondant. So let's just compare this one and this one. You see there's this kind of the white spots here. In this you wouldn't have that. So I'm going to add, this is just gotten dried out. I'm just going to add a little more Otka into it. Use the same brush. Mixing up all the dried areas. So if you are having airbrush and if it you have the luster of copper, then the best thing would be to airbrush it. I'll be needing some more. And you don't add too much Otka, and even Evaporex, they kind of quickly dry out. So you can't make like a huge batch if the surface area that you use is like really huge. Also, you have to make them in smaller portions. So you can do that with the color that you choose to use. It can be gold also. If it is gold, you can play around. Now you know how it looks with dry dusting and with wet brushing. And when you airbrush it, then obviously all these brush strokes wouldn't be seen. I still like this one better, which is the dry dusting on freshly draped fondant. And if it is dried out, and that will be the wet version using your luster mixed up with the luster powder itself. You know, that's how it looks. How this one looks. It is shiny as well because it is the luster powder, but then it is a little glossier as well. When after the vodka dries, the glossiness will reduce a bit. And on this one, it is the gold and brown mixed together, all of this, and this is the same one as this one which I had tested. Okay, so you have any doubts? Let me just read out. The brown color is mixed as a gel color. Airbrush, it is an airbrush color of AmeriColor that I have mixed, but that doesn't matter. It can be gel also, and you can mix it, and if you feel like it is a little thicker, then add some Evaporex or vodka to it. Madhuri is asked if this is to be made on the cake top. The design will have to be made first on the table and then the fondant is placed on the cake. Not necessarily, but then that will be one separate disc and the edge of it will be seen outside. You can drape the cake, make sharp edges and all that, and then start doing this immediately. And when you do it on the top, then make sure when you are working on the edge, right, just make sure you hold it with your finger like that, and then use the ball tool and then poke. So every time you are working on the edge, hold the finger and then just use your finger to go around and to try and retain the sharp edges. So it doesn't matter, you can just do on the top all the way, come to the edge, hold your finger for support, press it, and then just rub it once to have your sharp edges without damage. Can we airbrush with sugar in airbrush colors? Yes, you can airbrush with any brand's airbrush color. Sugar in is also fine, but make sure if it is the alcohol based or the water based, and there is that difference, two different products that they have, it's better to stick to water based airbrush colors. We don't have vodka, can we use water? Secondly, can we paint once the fondant has dried? If you are painting, obviously, Lata, the fondant has to be completely dried out. If you don't have vodka, well, yes, try and keep Evaporex with you. If you don't have vodka for religious purposes, Evaporex is something that works really good. But even if you don't have Evaporex and you really want to try it today, water, yes. I'm not sure, I haven't mixed luster dust with the water, but I think it should work. But these blending stuff, I'm not sure if water is going to be as good as vodka or Evaporex, but you can nevertheless give it a try. Naveed Ahmed, the videos are there on the Facebook page all the time. I am uploading it. I mean, it is there. I mean, the Facebook lives remain on the Facebook page. You can come back and watch it. You can go back and watch all the previous lives as well. Okay, so that's day 7 that comes to an end today. So you make your hammered metal texture and post it on the Cakes Unplugged by Fondbites magazine Facebook group. And when you make it, post it on your Instagram stories and tag me so I could reshare your stories as well. So meet you tomorrow on day 8. Hope you guys are staying home and staying safe. Bye bye.